And Dennis?
John's here.
Hi, John.
Good morning.
And who's going to be from the public water suppliers? Is Kathy here? Okay, it's 10 a.m. Patty, can you do a roll call of directors, please? Patty, are we ready to go? You're still on mute.
This is the auditors. We're trying to make sure that we can hear everybody. And I heard a voice and it was very low.
Okay, can everybody hear me now?
Hi, Patty, we can hear you. Can you do a roll call for us, please?
We're going to get our sound right here so we don't have reverb. Hold on. Okay.
Very low on our end. Volume.
Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, Patty, we can hear you. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you now. Okay, Director Atkinson. Director Reiki. Director Clandry.
Here.
Director McLaren. It doesn't sound like we have everybody.
Okay, I'm
I'm
going
here,
to.
Patty.
So who is not present, Patty?
Right now, I'm not getting any. Was it Director Reiki?
I'm here.
Okay,
Adam's
Director.
present.
Director Atkinson. Director McLaren. So it looks like we're missing Atkinson and McLaren.
Okay, let's take a few minute break and I will make the call to Director McLaren. Can you make the call to Director Atkinson, please?
Yes, we'll try to get hold of him.
Thank you. Patty, I've gotten a hold of Director McLaren. He's having problems getting on. She should be on in a few minutes.
Okay, great. We'll give it a couple minutes. We'll keep an eye on her.
Can we ask everybody else to mute themselves who isn't part of the roll call?
Holly, this is Rob. I'm going to ask you to mute everyone. And before you do that, I'm going to ask Adam and John to make sure they unmute and keep unmuted after that happens. John and Adam, do you hear that? And will that be okay?
What did you want us to do?
Okay, we're going to mute everybody. And then Adam, you're going to have to unmute when we do that.
And Kathy McLaren's here.
Okay, and Kathy, we're going to mute everybody, and we need you to unmute if we do that.
Okay.
Okay. Patty, go ahead and mute everyone.
Okay. Everybody's muted.
Thank you. Now, Adam, John, Kathy, please unmute. And do we know, have we heard from Dennis yet?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, good. We have all of our directors present.
Okay, let's do a roll call vote one more time. Director Atkinson,
Here.
Director Ariki,
Adam, you need to unmute so you can talk right now. We muted everybody.
Director Calandry,
Okay, Holly, go ahead and unmute everybody again.
Okay, everybody.
Patty, I
right.
dialed *6 to unmute myself and it doesn't unmute.
right, if we mute you, you cannot unmute yourself. No, okay.
Then how am I going to unmute myself?
We're going to do roll call one more time. Okay. Director Atkinson, Director Ariki,
I'm here.
Director Clark,
Landry's here.
Director McLaren,
I am here.
okay. Director Perez,
President.
Phyllis Stanton, here. Kate White,
Here.
Craig Parton,
Here.
Matt Knudsen,
Here.
all present. Thank you.
Okay, everybody, you need to mute your phones unless you're talking. Otherwise, we're going to have a very difficult time doing this meeting. If necessary, I'm going to have Patty mute everybody if we can't conduct the meeting any other way, and unmute whenever we do a vote or we need public discussion. And the presenters today are going to be Craig and Phyllis. Phyllis, do you know how to unmute if we mute you? Right? If you're on a computer, that should be easy to do.
I think so.
Okay. And Craig?
Yes, I think I'll be able to handle it, no problem.
Okay, great. Okay. At this time, we're on adoption of the agenda. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved,
I
Kathy
move that we
McLaren.
adopt this.
Motion made by Kathy, and I think seconded by Adam. Is there any discussion? All in favor of the motion to adopt the agenda, say aye. Aye. Actually, we need a roll call vote on adoption of the agenda. I'm sorry. Patty, will you do the roll call vote? All in favor of adopting the agenda? Patty, roll call vote.
Yes. Director
Dennis, yes.
Director Ariki,
Yes.
Director Calandry,
Yes.
Director McLaren,
Yes.
Director Paris.
Yes. Motion's carried unanimously. Agenda's adopted. We're on public comments of non-agenda items. Patty, make sure everybody's unmuted. Is there any public comment on non-agenda items?
This is Galen Kyle. I have one.
Hi, Galen. Go ahead, please.
Last month we had some large attorney fees that I don't think we should have to do in the future. Any attorney fees incurred in regards to a transfer, purchase, new production, change of extraction should be the responsibility of the applicant and not be paid by the assessed rate people.
Okay, Galen, I will have Matt take a note of that and we'll respond to it under the comments by our manager.
Yes, I think it could be even put on the, when they go to get
Sure, Galen, we will respond to that. Again, everybody, if you are not speaking, please mute your phones. The feedback is not working very well. Thank you. Any other public comments? Hearing no other public comments, now we have music. Patty, go ahead and mute everybody, please.
Okay, it's done.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Perfect.
Okay, good. There's no special presentations. We're now on the consent agenda. That will be items A through E. Are you able, Patty, to recognize and unmute Adam, Dennis, and Kathy? And John?
If they had their names as signed in, I need to know what their phone numbers are so I can identify them here on this end. It would be a lot easier if I knew that.
Okay, we will organize that for next time. Let's go ahead and unmute and we will go through the consent agenda. Okay, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
We'll move. Dennis moves.
Motion made by Dennis and seconded by John. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Motion made by Dennis, seconded by John to approve the consent agenda. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, we will have a roll call vote. All in favor of approving the consent agenda, Patty, will you do the roll call?
Director Atkinson,
Yes.
Director Ricci,
Yeah.
Director Calandri,
Yeah.
Director McLaren. Yeah. Director Paris.
Yes. Motion's approved unanimously. We're now on the advisory committee report. Who will be doing the advisory committee report?
James.
James? Okay, James, we're going to mute everybody and unmute you. Patty, go ahead and mute everybody. Or James, can you unmute your phone or your computer? Patty, are you able to unmute him?
Okay, got it.
Thanks. James, go ahead and do your report, please.
Hi, this is James from Little Rock Creek Advisory Committee Chair. I believe the memo speaks for itself. If there's any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them. We met on July 15th at 10 a.m. and the committee approved the audit, the annual report, the transfer applications, the new production, the new point of extraction, and then F, the small pumper qualifying applications. The committee discussed and approved that. And then item G, the review and comment of section 9 and Untitled Watermaster rules and regs. I believe Stan Powell had some comments and concerns on that. If Stan's on, I'd like him to address those. Besides that, that's my report.
Okay, James, thank you. Thank you very much. Patty please unmute for one moment? And is Stan Powell available? Stan, are you on the line?
Yes, this is Stan Powell. Can you hear me?
Yeah, are you on the phone or are you on a computer?
I'm on the phone.
Okay, and your number is the 9422198 number, is that correct?
I'm not sure. I normally don't use this phone, so I'm not sure my number.
Okay, Stan, do you have comments?
I did. They're documented in the advisory committee report. They dealt with the section 9 of the rules and regulations. And I think that would probably be the right point to discuss that if it's necessary today would be during that part of the call.
Okay.
If you would like me to summarize, I can do it now, but I think it could wait.
Yeah, we'll do it during that part of the agenda, and we have you identified now, so we will be able to call on you at that point. Can we mute everybody at this time, please, Patty?
Done. Look, we can't hear you anymore.
Yeah, no, I'm back. We're now on action items, and item A is the 2019 draft financial audit. I believe I heard that our auditors were on. Why don't you unmute? Let's identify them, and then they will be able to speak. Go ahead and unmute. Okay, and are our officers available for the report?
Could you repeat that? I couldn't hear that.
Yeah, is the auditor available to do the report? Who, you identify yourself?
Yes, this is Chris Brown. Can you hear us?
Yeah, Chris, we hear you very well. Are you you adjust your volume on your side?
Is it very loud? I can't tell.
No, you're fine, but it sounds, are you having problems hearing us?
Every now and then.
Okay, and are you on a phone or on a computer?
We have both going. We have the computer muted because we didn't know if there was going to be video, but the sound was very low, so we called in.
Okay, because you can adjust the sound on your computer to make it louder, but can you identify the number you're calling in, because we're going to mute everyone else except for you?
I believe it is, hang on one second. I think it's 951-783-9147.
Got it. Patty, have you recognized that number? And we're going to mute and then unmute that number, please.
Yeah, we're going to mute everybody but Mr. Brown.
Okay, great. Please mute and
Okay, Mr. Brown, go ahead.
Chris, can you hear us?
All right, we're going to have to.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Oh, boy.
You must have you must have a phone and your computer going because there's an echo.
Yeah. Okay. I will go ahead. I can. Bear with me just one moment. Yes. We're going to go ahead and turn off the video and just do the phone.
That's great. Thank you.
All right. Just bear with us. Just give us 10 seconds or so.
Patty, can you still recognize Mr. Brown's phone?
Yes, he's going over to his computer. So he's taking he's turning his computer off so that we don't get any reverb.
Right. And do you have his phone identified?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Good, but hold on here.
If he hung up his phone.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, Mr. Brown, you are fine. Go ahead, please. With your
Okay.
report.
We could hear you guys, but you couldn't hear us. So I'm going to go ahead and just use the phone. And shall I just go ahead and proceed since we were connected and everything seems to be working?
Yes.
Yes, please.
Okay. All right. So once again, my name is Chris Brown, partner on the engagement. Alec German is here with me. And want to go over the results of the 2019 audit. I have just a few things I want to go over and some quick going over the numbers. Then I'll open up to any questions that you have. But the audit was performed in accordance with auditing standards generally accepted in the United States of America, which includes assessing the Watermaster's internal controls, agreeing the balances to the supporting documentation, and performing key analysis of the various relationships within the financial statement itself. There are two reports that come out of the audit, one being the financial statement, and within that is the auditor's report. And within the auditor's report, one paragraph in there is basically the opinion, and it says, in our opinion, the financial statements referred to above present fairly, in all material respects, the financial position of the Antelope Valley Watermaster as of December 31st, 2019. So congratulations on a clean opinion.
Thank you.
The other document I was referring to was the management report, and that is the auditor's communication to you, the board. You're our boss. And the document itself is basically provides an explanation of what we're doing and if we come across any findings that we feel need to be brought to your attention. Kind of the big picture on that is that we did not identify material weakness within Watermaster's internal control. We have a couple of comments within the document itself, and they're basically relating to the methodology used in the accounting system, account groupings, and the need for to separate the various pools of money. We've communicated that to management, and they are going to be working in the future to remedy that. It'll basically make your reporting easier if you have the various fund type of situation that we've recommended. But big picture there again, no material weakness within the internal controls of the Watermaster. With regard to the financials themselves, kind of the big picture, and I'm kind of working off of the condensed statement of net position and the condensed statement of revenues and expenses and such. But with regard to the statement of net position, we can see the total assets increased by approximately, I'm going to round some numbers here, 2.046 million from the prior year. Big portion of that relates to receivables, and I'll go over that in a little bit more detail in a second. Liabilities actually reduced by approximately $1,200, not much to report there. Net position, which is essentially the net worth, it's your assets minus your liabilities, increased by $2,047,900. Of that amount, $2,063,000 is considered to be restricted. It primarily relates to water purchasing and such. And I'll go over that in a little bit more detail in a moment. And then the unrestricted amount is approximately $7,900, bringing your total net position to $2,071,152. The other side of it is the condensed statement of revenues, expenses, and changes in net position. It's your revenues, expenses. There again, as I mentioned, your total net position increased by $2,047,900 as a result of ongoing operations. Okay, total revenues increased by approximately $1.8 million, primarily due to an increase of $1.9 million in replacement water assessments. We can see that number reflected in your accounts receivable that I mentioned previously. That was offset by a decrease of approximately $95,000 in imported water return flow. So the net of those two numbers shows the increase in revenues of 1.8. The next item is your expenses, actually decreased by approximately $226,000, primarily due to a decrease of $221,000 in Watermaster engineer expenses, which was offset by an increase of $17,000 in contract administrative services. So there again, results of operations, you increased by approximately $2,047,000. So kind of the big picture, taking a look back, given the circumstances and the social distancing and auditing remotely, I think it went very well. And everybody at Watermaster and all the other agencies involved, I'd like to thank them for all the hard work they did. And my thanks to Alec German, our staff here did a really good job. With regard to internal controls, there again, we did not find material weakness. Looking for anything else here? Yeah, it was a pretty solid audit. So that's pretty much my presentation for today. Do you have any questions?
Thank you, Chris. Patty, can you unmute? We will ask for any questions, and then
Everybody's
any questions of Chris regarding his audit report? If there's no questions, can I have a motion to accept the filing of the 2019 audit?
This is Dennis. I'll move.
Motion made by Dennis. Is there a second?
Second by Kathy.
Adam, my second.
Motion made by Dennis, second by Kathy. Is there any further discussion? See no further discussion. All in favor of the motion, we will have a roll call vote. Patty?
Director Atkinson,
Yes.
Director Alicia,
Yes.
Director Collectory,
Yes.
Director McLaren,
Yes.
and Director Paris.
Yes, the motion's passed unanimously, and at this time, can we mute all the phones? Can we please mute all the phones? Thank you. Okay, at this time, we're going to move to public hearing to consider the Antelope Valley Watermaster 2019 annual report. And while we unmute for a moment, I need to get Craig's advice. Or can you unmute Craig for a moment? Craig, do we need a motion to go in public hearing, or can I just move us back into public hearing since this is our third time?
Why don't you ask for a motion to do it?
Okay. Can we unmute, and I need a motion to go into public, to open the public hearing? Is there a motion to open the public hearing on the annual review?
I'll move. Dennis, I'll move.
Motion made by Dennis. Is there a second?
Second by John.
Second by John. Any discussion? See no discussion. All in favor of the motion. Patty, a roll call vote to go into public hearing.
Dennis, yes.
Director Riki,
Yes.
Director Landry,
Yes.
Director McLaren,
Yes.
and Director Paris.
Yes, the motion to go into, to open the public hearing for the Alphabet Watermaster 2019 annual report has passed unanimously. We will now mute all the phones except for Phyllis.
Good morning, everyone. It's nice to hear your voices. Can you hear me?
We hear you very well, Phyllis.
Yes.
Thank you so much. I have just a few slides to summarize the annual report to begin the public hearing today. And if you could just go to the next slide.
Phyllis, Phyllis, hang on
Yes.
for 1 minute. We're going to mute all the phones and then we're going to unmute you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Patty, please mute everyone. Unmute Phyllis, or does she need? There you are. Phyllis, you're unmuted. Let's start your report. Thank you.
Thank you so much. If we could go to the first slide, we can just review quickly where we've been with respect to the annual report. Essentially, we had a draft posted on June 3rd. We received comments and revised the draft accordingly. We posted a revised draft on July 1st, and we need to post the final by July 29th, 2020. Next slide. Since the draft was posted on July 1st, there has been really minimal edits and information. We updated annual production reports. We got a few additional ones, and so that required updates to various portions of the annual report. We also updated Appendix L with some revised contact information. We like to keep that current so that when we put out notices, everyone gets the right information. And finally, the annual report final, of course, will update text and Appendix K that will talk about the approved audit that we just heard about, the approval of the rules and regulations, which happened last time and we're going to mention again today, and then the annual report approval and submittal, so that the text in the document will be accurate with respect to the entire process. Next slide, please. And here is the schedule. Again, we talked a little bit about July 1st. We posted the revised draft. There were no real final comments other than the ones that we just talked about on the previous slide. And today we're having our public hearing. This gives everyone an opportunity to provide any additional last-minute comments so that we can make final revisions, obtain approval from the board today to move forward, and then file with the court. We want to get the final posted on the website by July 29th, and then August 1st, it's due to the court. We also will be submitting the annual report to the Department of Water Resources in compliance with SGMA, who requires reporting from adjudicated basins. And then the final slide there, please. And that is the my comments for the public hearing. And if we so move after the public hearing, we have a resolution in your packet on page 66, which approves the filing of the court. It also approves the filing of the annual report with Department of Water Resources, and it approves the final edits. We've sort of listed those there. They're very minor, most of them editorial and catching the annual report up with the entire process, and then any other additional edits that the board approves that are made by the public for the remainder of this public hearing. And at that point, I will let the public hearing proceed and then answer any questions that either the public or the board has with respect to the annual report. And I believe the next item is the, I'm sorry, we're done with those slides for now. I believe the next item is for the advisory committee to have comments.
That's correct, Phyllis, and thank you for your report. And can we unmute James and see if advisory committee has any additional comments other than what we're given at the beginning of the meeting?
James?
Yes.
Hi,
can you hear
James.
me?
Yeah, we hear you well. Any other comments?
If there's any other comments, I had Stan Powell abstain from the votes. So if there's any comments, maybe Stan has some. Besides that, the board or the advisory did approve it.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. And can we unmute Stan very quickly and mute everyone else?
Dan Powell? You're unmuted.
Yes, this is Stan. I abstained simply because I ran out of time to do a review. So I chose not to vote up or down simply because I had not done a review and I had no comments on it. So thank you.
Great, thank you. And now we're open for public comments. Can we unmute everybody, please? Okay, everybody's unmuted. Public comment. Are there any public comments regarding the 2019 annual report? Hearing no public comments, is there a motion to close the public hearing?
This is Adam. I move that we close the public hearing.
Motion made by Adam to close the public hearing. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Kathy. There's a motion seconded to close the public hearing. All in favor of that motion? Patty, can you do a roll call vote?
Yes.
Yes.
Director Calandri,
Yes.
Director McLaren,
Yes.
and Director Paris.
Yes, motion's carried unanimously to close the public hearing. We're now on item C, Antelope Valley Watermaster 2019 annual report. And Phyllis, do you have further at this point?
No, I will be happy to answer any questions that the board might have about the annual report process.
Okay, thank you, Phyllis. Any further questions of Phyllis about the annual report? Seeing no further questions, is there a motion to adopt resolution number R 2020 approving the 2019 Antelope Valley Watermaster annual report?
Can I, Chairman Paris, this is Craig Parton. Can I make a comment?
Yes, please, Craig.
I just wanted to make sure that there appeared to have been a typo in the resolution that went to the board packet that I believe has been corrected. There was a reference to a 2018 annual report, and I think that's been corrected, but I just wanted to make sure.
Yes, it's been corrected.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Craig. Thank you, Patty. Now, I think we need the motion to approve resolution number R 2020 approving the 2019 Antelope Valley Watermaster report. Is there a motion? Okay.
Second.
Motion made by John Calandri, seconded by Dennis Atkinson. Is there any further discussion? No further discussion. All in favor of the motion, Patty, can you do a roll call vote, please?
Director Atkinson,
Yes.
Director Ariki,
Yes.
Director Calandri,
Yes.
Director McLaren,
Yes.
and Director Paris.
Yes, motion's carried unanimously to approve resolution number R 2020. We're now on transfer applications. We're going to mute everybody, unmute Phyllis, and start with the transfer applications item A.
Mr. Chairman, this is Board Member Calandri. Do I need to recuse myself from this?
Answer is no. We've done a memo on that, Director Calandri, about board conflicts of interest. And the duty to act is in the best interest of the board in general. If there's an objection to you participating, it can be raised with the court.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, John, for asking that. Thank you, Craig. And then, Craig, are you going to?
Yes. I think I was, unless Phyllis wanted to comment on the indemnities, I wanted to give a background to the indemnification agreements that are in the board packet.
We will unmute you, and then you give your report, please.
Okay. At our last board meeting in June, there was a couple of resolutions adopted to approve transfers involving.
You need to give a minute to.
Yeah, we need to mute, and then we will unmute you. Sorry about that. Okay, and Craig, you're able to unmute yourself, or we will do it.
Yeah, how is that? Is that clear?
Yeah, you're good. Go ahead, please.
You'll recall lengthy discussion at the June board meeting about transfers involving Calandry Farms Inc. and Brandon Calandry and Five Lions Limited Partnership. We approved, the board approved those transfers subject to the condition that indemnification be provided to the Watermaster for any costs that might be incurred, attorney's fees and other costs that might be incurred as a result of legal action arising from those transfers. The indemnifications were drafted since the June meeting and have been approved by council for Calandry Farms Inc. and Five Lions. Just so that you remember the sequence, Calandry Farms Inc. and Five Lions were to intervene in the judgment and become parties to the judgment. They filed the motion to intervene timely. It's waiting to be heard in a week from now. There's been no opposition to it, but it's very clear that one of the conditions to that transfer being approved is to enter into an indemnification of the Watermaster. And there's two indemnity agreements, one for Calandry Farms Inc. and the other one for Five Lions, that we are requesting that the board approve entering into those indemnifications, and then the transaction will be complete and the transfer can go forward. So that's all I wanted to say on that. A related issue is the expense involved was raised by Mr. Kyle about the expense that was involved in that transfer process last month. And there was a substantial effort that went into that. The indemnification obviously protects the Watermaster going forward, but getting fees and costs to investigate the legal authority that either one of those entities had to enter into the transfer was in rules and regulations that haven't been approved by the court yet. So we're a little premature. We're set up for the future to get fees and costs in a transfer that creates legal costs to investigate a party's legal authority to execute a transfer. But with these, because of the timing of the rules and regs not being approved by the court yet, we are in the situation we are with the costs incurred having to be paid by the Watermaster. So the bottom line is there's two indemnities. They're essentially identical, and ask the board to approve entering into the indemnification agreements. And it should be by oral voice vote. There's no resolution in the packet on that topic.
Greg, this is Rob. We need to do a roll call vote because of the confusion with the voice vote is the reason I'm doing that.
I'm sorry, I meant roll call vote, exactly.
Okay, great. Okay, let's open the phones up. And is there a motion to approve the execution of the indemnity agreements?
This is Dennis, so moved.
Motion made by Dennis. Is there a second?
Second by Adam.
Motion second by Adam. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion. Again, is there any discussion? I'm sorry.
Rob, Yeah, real quick, I just want to ask Craig, what was the cost, if you do recall, the total cost incurred in this case? I understand we're not doing it because it's not the rules and regulations have not been approved. I'm just out of curiosity. What was the cost? How many hours?
I can only estimate that, Adam. We haven't taken that out exactly and quantified it, but I would say it was a substantial effort. I want to say 25 hours of time, 15 to 25 hours of time, something like that. It was substantial.
Okay, and that was the point I'm trying to make. You know, going forward, hopefully once the rules and regulations are accepted by the court, it is important that we consider that cost, as Mr. Kyle, I believe.
Mr. Kyle had brought that up earlier.
Right.
And I believe our rules and regulations now, once they're passed by the court, will require that we get paid back for that time. Is that right, Craig?
Yes, rule and regulation 13FB allows the authority to assess fees and costs to investigate the party's legal authority to enter into a transfer. So we will have that tool in our toolbox going forward.
Okay, and Galen, at this time, did you want to have any more discussion on that item?
There's any number of items that come before the attorney, and when they come before the attorney to make these transfers or whatever, it should be agreed upon that the applicant will pay the attorney's fees up front. We should pay that bill.
And Craig, once our rules and regulations get approved, that will be the case for most things, won't it?
Well, for transfers, and just keep in mind, we already have the authority to seek fees and costs with respect to delinquent assessments. So the key is always, does the judgment or the rules and regulations allow us to recover fees and costs? And where is the provision that does that? And we do have that authority to seek fees and costs in connection with delinquent assessments.
Okay.
And now with transfers.
Wouldn't you think we have the right to make transfers? We have the right to collect fees.
Yes, we have a specific authority to collect fees and costs under the new rules and regulations to be approved by the court. And it's described as costs associated with investigating a party's legal authority to execute a transfer. And that's exactly what the time was spent in these last transfers haggling with, was the authority of the parties to enter into a transfer. It got very complicated.
Okay.
You know, Craig, your bill was probably 25% higher than it should, and if we wouldn't have had to pay those attorney's fees, isn't that right?
Yes, about that.
Okay, is there any further discussion? See no further discussion. All in favor of the motion to approve execution of the indemnity agreement? Patty, roll call vote.
Director Atkinson?
Yes.
Director Ariki?
Yes.
Director Calandri?
Yes.
Director McLaren?
Yes.
And Director Paris?
Yes, motion's approved unanimously to execute the indemnity agreement. We're now moving on to item B. I believe that's going to be Phyllis. Please mute everybody but Phyllis.
Yes, and please mute everyone but Kate, because Phyllis is going to punt the applications today and the review of them to Kate White.
Okay, is Kate on your computer or is she on her own?
No, she's on her own.
Okay.
Can you hear me? Everybody, hang on.
And have we identified Kate's computer?
Yes.
Okay, is Kate on?
Can everyone hear me? This is Kate White.
Yes, Kate, we hear you very well. Go ahead with item B.
Good morning. The first transfer on today's agenda is a permanent transfer of 1 acre-foot. And the resolution for this transfer starts on page 73. And the application starts on page 76. And the applicant, which is Jeffrey and Nancy Siebert, would like to transfer 1 acre-foot of production rights to Michael Herbert. And the Sieberts are an Exhibit 4 party, and Michael Herbert is not a party to the judgment. The Sieberts have 105 acre-feet of production rights and are not pumping groundwater now. Their parcel is in the West Antelope sub-area, and that's shown on figure on the page 77 of the packet. And Mr. Herbert would like to use the water in the central Antelope Valley sub-area. And the parcels that he is farming on were recently bought by AV Hemp Company. And they bought them from the Derrick family, which is a small pumper class member, after the Derrick's replacement obligations were fulfilled. HUD Groundwater recommends the approval of this permanent transfer of 1 acre-foot, provided that Mr. Herbert intervenes into the judgment and uses the water on the indicated parcels. So are there any questions on this application?
Can I just make a quick comment on this transfer? There's specific condition that Mr. Herbert intervene in the judgment in the next 30 days. We will calendar that, and I'd like to just ask staff to calendar an update to this board for the August meeting to follow up to make sure that that intervention has occurred. This has been a concern that the board has raised before, that people promise to intervene. We've got to follow up and make sure that's actually been done.
Okay, thank you, Craig. Thank you, Kate. Let's unmute and... Okay, do I have a motion to approve resolution number R 2021?
Mr. Mayor, I wanted to ask Kate a quick question. In the application, this is Adam. In the application, was it indicated what kind of farming is going to take place in this parcel?
I can't quite remember, but I know that the farming, it's an ongoing farming, what's occurring there, but I can't remember what exactly is occurring on those parcels.
Oh, so this is in addition to, I thought this gentleman, Mr. Herbert, does not have any water rights.
He does not. It's Derrick. It was the Derrick family land, and they were small pumpers, and they were over pumping, irrigating whatever crop, which I can't remember. And the Derricks paid a replacement obligation for their overuse of water, and then they sold their property to the AV company. And Mr. Herbert is farming the AV company for them, and I don't know if he's a partner in the hemp company or not, but he wants production right in his own name.
Mm-hmm.
That's my understanding.
It's just such a small amount of water for farming. That's the only reason I asked.
Yeah, well, I think he's doing it to become a Exhibit 4 party member. Which is a permanent transfer.
Okay, are there any other questions? See no other questions, or hearing no other questions, is there a motion to approve resolution number R 2021?
So moved, Kathy.
Motion made by Kathy, is there a second?
Second, McClendry.
Adam.
Second by, I heard John first. There's a motion and second to approve resolution number R 2021. Any further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, all in favor of the motion. Patty, go ahead and do roll call, please.
Director Atkinson?
Yes.
Director Ricci?
Yes.
Director Calandry?
Yes.
Director McLaren?
Yes.
And Director Harris,
Yes, the motion to approve resolution number R 2021 passed unanimously. We're now on item C, resolution 2022. And can everybody be muted except Kate, please?
Can I ask a favor of Kathy? Kathy, can you speak for a minute so I can identify your name out of all? Kathy McLaren.
Excuse me, said that again?
Okay, you're 661-433.
435-9973.
Thank you.
Okay, great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, we will now mute everybody except Kate.
Okay, can everyone hear me now?
Kate, we hear you well. Go ahead, please.
Great. So there are additional transfers included in the packet today. And resolution R-20-22 starts on page 87 of the packet. And it's for a split of production rights. And there are also 2 one-time transfers of carryover water. The split of rights application starts on page 90. And the Selex would like to split 180 acre per year production rights equally between 2 brothers, Richard Selleck and Stephen Selleck, and they are an Exhibit 4 party. And the Selleck property is in the central Antelope Valley sub-area, and they are not pumping groundwater. And this one's pretty simple. Are there any questions related to this one?
Please unmute and let's ask the board if there's any questions from the public. Okay, any questions regarding this transfer? Okay, if there's no questions, is there a motion to approve resolution number R 2022?
Oh, Rob, I think there's 2 other transfers that have to be discussed first.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And so one of the other, both transfers are also the Selex. And once their rights are split, they want to each transfer 10 acre feet of carryover water to the 40th Street Mutual Water Company. And the Mutual Water Company was on the default list in the judgment, but they applied for new production and were granted it in May 2020. And the 20 acre feet that they're going to get from the Selex, 10 from Stephen and 10 from Richard, will be used for part of their replacement obligations. And recognizing that these one-time transfers will offset the 40th Street Mutual Water Company's replacement obligations, and that it doesn't represent new pumping. They have been pumping this amount. Todd Groundwater finds the potential for material injury negligible. Any questions on these 2 applications?
Now, Kate, these are all under number R 2022?
Correct.
Okay. And after this, are there any others that we have to discuss?
Not on R 2022.
Okay, great.
Well, so for this is Adam. I just have a clarification question here. For the Mutual Water Company, you said they are not a party to the judgment?
No, they were on default list. And then they asked for new production, and they were granted new production. And so,
they were granted.
In May.
That makes them a party to the agreement, Craig?
Well, I think they'll have to intervene into the judgment if they haven't already. Craig, is that? Just correct me if I'm wrong, Craig. But that's my And so then, with the new production and the intervene, they will be a party.
I didn't hear Craig, by the way.
Actually, I think they're already a party since they were on the default list.
Yes, they're already a party. They're defaulted. They are a party to the judgment.
Thanks.
Okay.
Okay. Are there any other questions regarding R 2022? Hearing no further discussion, is there a motion to approve resolution number R 2022?
This is Adam. I move that we approve resolution R 2020.
2022. Yeah. Motion made by Adam, and John, you second that motion, correct?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Motion made by Adam, second by John to approve resolution number R 2022. Is there any further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, all in favor of the motion to approve resolution number R 2022, roll call vote, Patty.
Director Atkinson,
Yes.
Director Ariki,
Yes.
Director Calandry,
Yes.
Director McLaren,
Yes.
and Director Paris.
Yes, motion's approved unanimously to approve resolution number R 2022. We're now on item E, new production, new point of extraction, or Phil.
This will be Kate again.
Okay, Kate, we're going to mute everybody first. And then you just unmute, and we'll start in 30 seconds.
Okay, everybody's muted.
Okay, can everyone hear me okay?
Kate, we hear you great. Go ahead.
Great. So this is Resolution R 2023, which starts on page 119 in the packet. And there are 7 well applications for approval. And 5 of these applications are for new production, and 2 are new points of extraction. And the first new production application is on page 121. And the applicant would like to use the water for a single-family home and irrigating some trees. And they're located in the southeast sub-area. And that's shown, the parcel is shown on page 1, on a figure on page 134 of the packet. And given the small amount of proposed production, which is only 1 acre-foot per year, and the obligation to pay a replacement water assessment, Todd Groundwater finds that the potential for material injury is negligible. Are there any questions on this one?
Please unmute for a few seconds, and we'll ask if there's any questions. Are there any questions on this request for new
Are
production?
these small pumpers? Are these on the small pumpers list?
No, this is a new party. Well, this is they're asking for new production, and so they're essentially considered a Willis class member. So they are a party, but the previous land was vacant. Does that make sense, Adam?
Yeah.
I described
Right.
it.
So we're adding them to the Wallace class, correct?
Say that once more.
We're adding these new pumpers to the Wallace class.
Correct. It'll be added like to what we're calling the new production class number.
Okay. So there has been, I have a concern about, and I brought this up before. I have a concern about once we approve those new wells, I want to make sure that they do go to the health department, they do get their drilling permit, and then the Watermaster ends up getting a copy of this drilling permit and a completion report of when the well is completed. I know previously I asked this question about other wells that we have approved in the past, and I was told that we do not have records of them getting permit from the county health departments, whether it's in Kern County or LA County. So maybe this is more appropriate for the administrative staff and Watermaster GM when they do the report. But that has to be. We have to have a process that completes that process in a way that we have records of these wells being drilled based on the requirement of the health department.
Adam, once they get the approval from the Watermaster, they do go to the county, they do get their permit. They are required to do their metering, and we do get all that information from them. Angel is very good about following up. We do a follow-up with each of the new production applicants within a couple of months. And if they still haven't drilled, we continue to contact them until we know what their status is.
So for some of the wells that we have approved, Patty, do we have records of the drilling permit from the county health?
We do have some records, and we also have metering records on some of our new applicants. So as they are drilling their wells, we've also had some contact that some people have drilled wells that have come up with dry wells. So even though they did get production right from us, they were unable to get water from a well, so they had to abandon those wells. So we are trying our best to keep up with you guys.
Right. Last time, for whatever reason, I must have understood that we did not have records of the permits. Not that they didn't get permits, we just don't have a copy of the permit and proof that the well was constructed appropriately.
We are now, since that last conversation, we are now requesting that they, once they get their permit, that we get a copy of that permit.
Thank you very much. And just for those that are wondering why am I concerned about that, it's water quality. Because a lot of wells, they're not constructed based on the health department requirements. They end up to be conduit pollutants into the groundwater basin. Thank you, Patty. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Adam. Any further questions of Kate at this time on the first request for new production? Okay, mute everybody, and Kate, why don't you go on to the next one, please?
Okay, these.
Sorry, Kate, you're going to have to unmute. There you go.
Okay, I'll start.
Now you can start. Yes.
The
please.
second new production application starts on page 136 of the packet. And the applicant would like to build a building to store and work on his cars, bikes, and carts. And the water use would be about 1 acre-foot per year. The property is located in the West Antelope subarea, and it's near the Willow Springs Raceway. And in the packet, there's some figures on page 144, 145, and 147 that kind of show its location. And given the small amount of production and the obligation to pay a replacement water assessment, Todd Groundwater finds that the potential for material injury as defined in the judgment to be negligible. Are there any questions on this one?
Are there any questions? Have we unmuted? Are there any questions? Okay, hearing no questions, let's mute and go on to the next request.
Okay, the third new production application starts on page 149 of the packet.
Hey, Kate, this is Rob.
Yeah.
I'm going to just ask you to go through all of them, and then we'll open it up for questions of any one of the other ones. I think that will be more efficient for us.
All right, that sounds great. I'll do that.
Thank you.
So the third new production application is on page 149 of the packet. And the applicant would like to use the well to supply water to a house and for irrigation of shrubs and trees. The parcel is in the West Antelope subarea, is shown on a figure on page 160 in the packet. And annual production will be about 1.5 acre feet per year. And given the small amount of production and the obligation to pay a replacement water assessment, we find the potential for material injury as defined in the judgment negligible. That's the third one. And the fourth new production packet is on page 162 of the packet. And this applicant would like to use this well for commercial use at a proposed gas station and convenience store. There is an existing well on the parcel that the applicant would like to use for irrigation. Both wells will be metered in accordance with the Watermaster requirements. And the parcel is in the southeast subarea, and it's shown on page 163 of the packet. This applicant applicant is not a party to the judgment and will need to intervene. And given the small amount of proposed production, which is about 3.53 acre feet per year for the commercial use, and 0.56 for irrigation, and the obligation to pay a replacement water assessment, Todd Groundwater finds that the potential for material injury is negligible for this applicant as well. And the last new production application starts on page 185 of the packet. And this applicant would like to install a well to supply water to a single-family home and for landscaping. And they are in the Central Antelope Valley subarea. And given the small amount of proposed production, which is less than 1 acre foot per year, and the obligation to pay a replacement water assessment, Todd Groundwater finds that the potential for material injury is also negligible for this one. And then there are 2 new points of extraction. And the first one starts on page 197 of the packet. And Palmdale Water District would like to use a portion of its production rights on a parcel owned by LA County Sanitation District. And this is for the Palmdale Regional Groundwater Recharge and Recovery Project. And it's in the Central Antelope Valley subarea, and it's shown on page 198 of the packet, the location of Palmdale's service area and where the project is. The well will first be used for monitoring, and later will be used for construction water. And the monitoring phase will last from late 2020 through 2022, and then the construction phase will start, and that'll go through 2023. The well will be first used for monitoring, and that was approved at the June board meeting to use the well as a monitoring well, but now Palmdale Water District would like to also request use of that well for a new point of extraction. And the construction water use will be about 6.1 acre feet per year. And given the small amount of proposed production on this, we find that there's really no material injury associated with it. And the last application is another new point of extraction. And that is for a small pumper. And the application starts on page 206 of the packet. And in this case, a 20-acre parcel was divided into 2 10-acre properties. And the applicant is the owner of one of the properties. And he has a property with existing house that was previously supplied water from the well that was on the adjacent property. And the location of the parcel is shown on page 207 of the packet. And the applicant would like to install a well on his property. And we find that the potential for material injury as defined in the judgment is negligible given the small amount of proposed production, and that the production to supply the existing house will just be shifted from the existing well to the proposed new well. And I think that's it. So I think we can open up for questions.
Okay, Kate, and are you recommending the approval of all these?
Yes, I'm recommending approval of all these applications.
Okay, great. Can we open up for any questions now? Are there any questions of Kate on any of
Yes, this is Adam.
Go ahead, Adam.
This is Adam. Out of curiosity, Kate, did you look into the existing well that is going to be used by the gas station or commercial property since it's a gas station?
No, I didn't really look into it. They provided a little information, and I think they're going to try to re-equip it and see if it can supply water. And so I couldn't really find any history on it. And so I don't know how old it is. But the existence of that well on their property makes them not fall into the Willis class. So that's why they have to intervene into the judgment. Because water at some point in the past was used on that parcel.
Was it an ag well?
Not really sure, probably because there's no other structures on the parcel.
Should we be concerned about how it was built and then the sanitary seal since it's a gas station?
It would be good to get that information, yes.
So does the owner of the gas station intend to drill a new well?
So they plan on, they want to use the existing well if they can for irrigation, but they are going to drill a new well to supply the gas station.
Okay, when you say, this is Rob, when you say for irrigation, irrigation of what?
Just the landscaping around the gas station.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And oh, go ahead, Adam, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. So I was going to say, does the application have a timeline when the new well would be drilled?
I don't think so. I assume that it would be drilled right away.
Right away.
Well, as soon as they get the...
Okay, so why would, if they drill a new well for the gas station, which I'm assuming is a small amount of water, why would they continue to use the existing well for irrigation? It just going to cost too much money to do that. Why don't they just use the new well for both the gas station and the irrigation?
That's a good question. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm a little bit concerned about the condition of this well, how old it is, and it has a sanitary seal. I wouldn't have been concerned if it wasn't a gas station. So if they are going to drill a new well, I'd rather approve them drilling a new well for their use for both the gas station and the irrigation, and abandoning the existing, I'm assuming it's an ag well, that's probably pretty old and wasn't drilled with a sanitary seal. Rather that will be abandoned and the new well they plan to drill be used for both the station and the irrigation, because it sounds like it's a small amount of water anyway.
Excuse me, Rob. There is a gentleman that has raised their hand, so we'd like to open him up for comment.
Okay, please.
Yeah, hello. Yeah, this is Manoj, and I'm representing that client for commercial property.
Hi, Manoj. Go ahead.
So yeah, Adam, I heard your couple of questions. Number one, the existing well was approved by the LA County, so we have provided all the permits and applications and approvals to the Watermaster.
Can we get copies of?
Yes, I did supply to the Watermaster. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, you already have supplied it to the Watermaster?
Yes, and I can do it again, but it was already, because
no, there's no need. Now, if you have already submitted it to the Watermaster, that's why I asked, and I understood that we don't have any information on the well. That if you already have submitted an LA County Health Department permit to drill the well, and you submitted how the well was constructed and it meets the requirements of the health department, I'm fine with that. As long as I can get a copy of it to look at it, Kate, I'm fine with that.
Sure. So that is number one. And number two, we like a new well, we want to just use, we want to keep it as separate, because normally for commercial projects, we want to keep the separate water for the irrigation and water which we may be using for drinking. So that's the purpose. We want to use the existing well for irrigation. So there is no contamination between the waters, so the water lines will be separate.
I can suggest something for you will save you a lot of money. You could just use the same well, the new well, and put a backflow device on the line that is used for the irrigation. They're very cheap, and you don't have to operate two wells.
Yeah, and the concern is like I heard the whole board meeting. So what if the well become new drilling will be the dry well? So right now we don't know what will be the condition. But if his new well is supplying the enough water, yeah, we can go with your route,
Okay. How old is the old well? The existing well?
Let me check the. Hold on 1 second. One second. I'm just getting the information. Just give me a minute.
While you're looking for the information, I want to ask Patty, are you hearing this discussion?
Adam, we hear
Matt?
you fine.
Yeah. Do we have record of the health department permit
They
for the
can't get,
existing well?
they cannot get a permit for a new well until they get approval from the Watermaster. Once they have your resolution and a signed application from us, they then take that to the county in order to get their permit. So the county will not, either county, Kern or LA County, will issue a well permit until they have a letter from us stating that they can have one.
Agreed. And that's the reason
Thank you,
we are
Patty.
approaching you guys.
I was asking for the existing well.
Yeah. The existing well is done in 1994.
1994. Yeah, Patty, I was asking about the permit that he said that he had provided us with a county health permit for the existing well.
I do not see one in this packet. We do not ask for permits on existing wells because some of these wells were drilled so long ago. We've got wells out there. The county let people drill.
I appreciate that.
But yeah, so on his well,
I appreciate that.
We do not have a permit on that.
Okay. So, sir, you said you submitted information on the existing well permit and all that to the Watermaster. Who did you submit?
Yes, and we can resubmit it. It's not an issue.
Okay. Yeah, I'd like that permit to be in the file just for record.
No, definitely. Yes,
Thank
yes.
you.
And I can email it to you guys. Okay?
Email it to Patty.
Yep.
Okay, is there further discussion?
Thank you.
Okay, any further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, I believe, Kate, we're now on resolution number R2024.
R2023.
R2023, and you're recommending approval of all of these, correct?
Yes, I am.
Okay, is there a motion to approve resolution number R2023?
I will move that we approve it, subject to the gentleman submitting the permit from the county health for the existing well.
So the motion So the motion is to approve R2023 with the provision that the request on parcel 165th and Fair Blossom Highway provide all records for the old well. Is that what the motion is, Adam?
Yes, including the LA County Department of Health permit.
Okay. Greg, are we able to put that addition into the resolution?
We can modify with modifications as stated at the board meeting of July, yes.
Okay. So
can we get to the motion? Can we adopt the resolution and just add that to the motion?
Greg?
Add it to the motion and the motion should indicate that the resolution's being adopted with that modification.
Okay. Got it. So the motion is by Adam is to approve resolution number R 2023 with the provision that the all the records for the old well, as stated by Adam, are provided to the Watermaster prior to the approval of that project, those wells going forward. Is that your motion, Adam?
Yeah, I want to be very specific. All records pertaining to the well, including the LA County Health Department or Public Health Department permit for a drilling permit for the well.
That motion has stated that it's only applies to that one part, one request. Okay.
Yes.
So the motion is to approve resolution number R 2023 with the provision of the additional records on the last request. That has been seconded. Is there any further discussion? Hearing no further discussion. All in favor of the motion, Patty, a roll call vote, please.
Director Atkinson,
Yes.
Director Ricky,
Yeah.
Director Calandri,
Yes.
Director McLaren,
Yes.
and Director Paris.
Yes, the motion passes unanimously to approve resolution R 2023 with the additional provision. We're now on item F, small pumper qualifying applications. This is going to be a report by, I would imagine, Matt or Peter?
Yeah, good morning, this is Matt.
Okay, Matt, before you continue, let's go ahead and mute everybody, and except for you, and we'll go forward.
Okay.
Thank you. Go ahead, Matt.
On page 223 of your board packet is our typical resolution for approving applications for small pumpers, replacement well production, and non-production wells. So we have 3 today to be considered by the board. The first one is a replacement well for a domestic well located in the central sub area. And then in addition to that, we have 2 small pumper qualifiers that are located in the southeast sub area. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions on this. Pretty straightforward. And we're recommending approval of the resolution R20-24.
Okay, please open it up, Patty. Are there any questions of Matt regarding approving applications for small pumper qualification? Hearing no questions, is there a motion to approve resolution number R 2024?
Yes, this is Adam. I approve that we, I move that we approve our 2024 resolution R 224.
Motion made by Adam. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Motion second by Kathy. Is there any further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, all in favor of the motion to approve resolution number R 2024, Patty, a roll call vote, please.
Director Atkinson,
Yes.
Director Ricky,
Yes.
Director Calandri,
Yes.
Director McLaren,
Yes.
and Director Paris.
Yes, motion's carried unanimously. We now move on to, item G, and it's a public hearing to consider possible action to adopt Section 9 of Antelope Valley Watermaster Rules and Regulations. Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Motion made by John to open the public hearing. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Second by Dennis. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor of the motion to open the public hearing regarding possible action to adopt Section 9 of the Antelope Valley Watermaster Rules and Regulations. Roll call vote. Patty?
Director Atkinson,
Yes.
Director Ricci,
Yes.
Director Calandry,
Yes.
Director McLaren,
Yes.
Director Paris.
Yes, motion's carried unanimously. We will now open the public hearing, and we have comments by General Counsel, and then Todd Groundwater, and then the Advisory Committee. Those will be the only 3 mics we will open. We will now close all the other mics.
Yes, this is Craig Parton. At our last board meeting in June.
Craig?
Sorry. Yes.
Yeah, you need to wait just a few seconds so we can mute everybody but you and Kate. Okay, Craig, go ahead. Sorry, Craig, you're gonna need to unmute.
I'm sorry. There we go. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay. At the board meeting in June, the Watermaster Board adopted the rules and regulations that were reflected in the April 27th draft that was posted on the website that was subsequently modified. But with the exception of Section 9, the board might remember that there was some discussion on Section 9, which relates to storage agreements. And direction was given to council and the engineer to discuss with interested parties appropriate language that would address some of the concerns that were being raised with respect to the topic of pre-existing banking projects. Council and the engineer have discussed some of the issues, particularly with counsel for AVEC, who is, I know, participating in this board meeting, is at least present, and language which we're proposing to address some of the issues as to what information a pre-existing project would have to provide is contained at pages 262 and 263. The rest of Section 9 remains as it has been, so there's very little content to review. That's been posted on the website. It's been circulated to the ad hoc attorneys committee and to the advisory committee for a comment. And you'll note that the advisory committee, and we heard earlier that there was some concern raised about provisions of Section 9, and the request is being made by the advisory committee that we table this potentially for another month to see if we can get to agreement. I'd like to give the opportunity to Mr. Powell to explain what some of his concerns are. I want the board to know procedurally that I have not yet submitted the rules and regulations to the court for approval. I waited after the last board meeting in June, thinking that we would get to potential agreement on the Section 9 edits, and therefore I could submit the rules and regulations as an integrated whole to Judge Komar for approval. That's still my hope to be able to do that, but depending on how the board wishes to decide and deal with these Section 9 comments, either will or won't be submitting an integrated set of rules and regulations to the court immediately following the board meeting. But I think the best thing to do now is to hear what the concerns were that were raised by the advisory committee that motivated them to ask that we table this potentially to the next board meeting for discussion. So it'd be appropriate to hear from both AVEC counsel and Mr. Powell with respect to the Section 9 discussion that we're having.
Craig, this is Rob. Will it increase our cost at all if we have to do it in 2 parts?
Well, it will increase the costs, whether that's significant amount or not. I don't foresee it being significant. It would be, the question is whether I wait another month to submit the rules and regulations after the August board meeting on the assumption that we're going to get to agreement. I really like Judge Komar to get the set as an integrated whole. But if it's looking like there's some disagreements that can't be resolved, then my inclination would be to submit the set that's approved by this board already, get it done, have all the rules and regulations, say for Section 9 approved, and then we'll just deal with Section 9 when we get to that question and the board resolves how it wants to act with respect to Section 9.
Okay, thank you, Craig. And I see next up would be Todd Groundwater. Does Kate or Phyllis have any comments at this time? And can we unmute the two of them?
I don't have any comments, additional comments at this time, with the exception that the Watermaster engineer assumes that payment would be by the banking operator, similar to what would be done if it were a new banking and a storage agreement.
Payment of what?
Our time to review the large amount of documents to understand the operations of the pre-existing banks.
Okay. And Craig, has that been inserted into the Section 9?
I think it's assumed that that's the way this would proceed. If documentation is provided to the Watermaster engineer with respect to a pre-existing banking project, that their fees would be recoverable just as they are for any banking project that submits documentation to the engineer.
Okay, thank you. And I think that then the next discussion, you wanted Jim, attorney for AVEC, to speak at this time. Jim?
I can speak now. I'm unmuted.
Yeah. Jim Markman, go ahead.
Okay. Well, I'll start with the last statement. That's the first word I heard, that the Watermaster engineer would be charging time to review this data on existing projects. I don't know if my client hasn't even considered that, but if that's just the broad way of anything the Watermaster engineer engages in being reimbursed by the party that's required to submit it, that's fine. But I think here there's a distinction. These were all operating before the judgment was entered. That's how we wrote it. So now we're happy to give the Watermaster engineer anything they want to look this over, but they don't have pre-approval authority to do that. It's not part of the approval process that's folded into creating one of these banks. So I think there's a completely different situation. We're not coming forward applying for something from the Watermaster engineer and the Watermaster that has happened since this judgment was entered. We're not new production. We're not changing production facilities. We're not transferring water rights. All we're doing is complying with what the rules say, which is give the information you have on the operation at the time the judgment was entered, and that's what we're doing. We're also agreeing to submit everything somebody would submit who was applying for a new water bank. So, I mean, I don't know if my client would object to paying or not, but that certainly was never discussed before, and it's not the same as an applicant having to pay for the Watermaster to review his or her application. So having said that, I have talked to Mr. Powell, who has looked at this, and I understand his two concerns. We spoke about them, and we really don't have any problem with him being concerned the way he is. It makes sense. I think the two concerns are, one, there have been water banks which have essentially been pumped by the operator of the bank below for more than the amount that was deposited or stored there. AVEC has a bank that's been operated that way, but when it overpumps, it covers its pumping with its own water rights. So you can look at a facility like that as a production facility, and nobody's reviewing all of the clustered or large production facilities that existed at the time the judgment was entered. I agree with Stan. I mean, if somebody's over withdrawing from one of these storage facilities and there's no water rights backing it up, I think that would be a problem. But I don't think it's connected with what we're dealing with here, which is the storage agreement doesn't apply. So what is the relationship between the Watermaster and the operator of an existing bank? The second thing I think, which was on Stan's mind, was it's on all our minds, on all the operations, is what happens if one of these operations created or would create in the future, or would creating now, some material injury to the basin. My view of that is that all we're talking about here is whether we need to enter into a storage agreement or supply information. I don't think anybody's exempt from avoiding causing material injury from an old production facility, an older water bank, or any other facility, a water treatment plant, reclaimed water supply lines. There's a whole number of things that have gone on and will continue to go on. And if there's a showing that that's creating or could create material injury, I think that the people running the old banks, I'll call them old banks, would have to respond accordingly, because I think that the judgment's enforceable against them to that regard. But I still don't think that that's the subject matter of all we're dealing with here, which is trying to clean up Rule 9 so that it's clear that a storage agreement is not something that should be sought on existing banks, but all the information pertaining to them should be supplied to the Watermaster engineer just as if they were new banks. So we would hope that after all this delay and all these discussions, that the board would see fit to approve the amended Section 9 today at this meeting. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, Jim, I'm going to have all questions at the end of all presentations. So I'm going to have Stan speak now and make sure that James doesn't have anything from the advisory committee. And then I'll ask for public comments and questions at that point. Okay. So, Stan, can we bring Stan on at this point and make sure everybody else is muted?
Stan's unmuted.
So this is Stan Powell. Can you hear me?
Yes, Stan, we hear you well.
Okay. Thank you, Jim, for your comments. And so I'm going to speak, I guess, first, if I can, for the advisory committee and then for myself. From the perspective of the advisory committee, I think that Jim accurately portrayed the two concerns we raised. We noted in the annual report that some of these facilities had negative banked water, and whether negative banked water is consistent with this judgment or how it might be made consistent is a significant question and concern that particularly could relate to pre-existing banking operations. And number two, if there's material injury, it's significant. Who's going to have to pay to try and rectify that material injury, which gets into the balance assessment. In the discussions with Jim, I felt encouraged that these issues can be addressed. As of today, I remain not yet convinced that they really are addressed by this. And I'm also concerned with the idea that all we're talking about here is whether you need a storage agreement, and these other issues are independent of that. And the reason I say that is if you look at the Section 14 of the judgment, which is where storage agreements are discussed, that section says that storage agreements shall expressly preclude operations which will cause a material injury on any producer. That, I think, answers the second issue we've been talking about. But if we don't have a storage agreement, it's not obvious to me that, in fact, that is handleable under the judgment as it's now written. The second issue, and this is probably more related to the negative banking amounts, Section 14 provides a protection and says that nothing in the judgment limits or modifies operation of pre-existing banking projects. And to my mind, the question is, what is that operation that is protected? If we have negative storage amounts, how did that happen under this operation, and does that should that be protected? And as Jim pointed out, there may be good reasons why it's appropriate here if we understand the full context. But I don't yet understand the full context. And the point of the advisory committee comments was, let's get all this context in front of everybody and let's have a discussion to drill down on these issues. And for that reason, the request to table this for another month. I guess that was discussed at the advisory committee. Speaking for myself, I do look at the language in the proposed Section 9. There's a lot of good language about access to information to evaluate each of these banking projects, including pre-existing banking projects. But I do think a key is to try and figure out what is the pre-existing operation. And I think the pre-existing operation may have limits on it beyond just what the facilities can do. And a couple of examples. If folks had approved their banking facility through a CEQA process, there may have been a commitment for mitigation. How do we incorporate that commitment for mitigation into the Watermaster's evaluation of this? Another situation would be, what if there's a water bank that did not go through CEQA and the public didn't have a chance to review what the potential impacts were? Well, then you may want to look at what's the most they ever pumped out of that bank in a given year. So you might peg it to how much they produce. Other projects, there may be a basis to say there was a commitment that the impacts would be no larger than, say, a 5 feet lowering of levels at a specific location. But I think you have to have the information that comes through an application to do that evaluation to make the determinations what pre-existing means. And I would be hopeful that over the next month that Jim and I could discuss that and reach some level of agreement over these issues, but I'm not convinced right now that I see that resolution in this language. So thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Okay, thank you. And then anything else from the advisory committee, James? Is James available?
I see him. I don't see any microphone.
Can you open his mic, or he has no mic?
It doesn't appear that he has a microphone.
Okay. And I think in his last report he said that this would be addressed by Stan.
Do you want me to unmute everybody?
This is Stan, and I just wanted to say the first part of the discussion that I gave, which dealt with the negative storage amounts and the possible use of balance assessments to mitigate material injury, were the topics that were discussed at the advisory committee and was the basis for the advisory committee recommendation. Thank you.
And Stan, before you leave, I thought I heard from James, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is that you were the only one objecting, and based upon that was how the advisory committee made their recommendation. Was that correct?
I brought all the issues to the advisory committee, which discussed it and voted on it, and the committee did vote. I don't recall if it was unanimous or not, but certainly a majority voted to table the issue.
Okay, that was helpful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Rob, I'd like to speak to what Stan said, possibly.
Yeah, please, go ahead, Jim.
Okay, so here's the problem. called out of not needing a new storage agreement because water banks are storage and recovery for the most part. There was an exception that an agreement would not address the operation, the then present operation at the time the judgment was entered. That's the best interpretation we could give that. It brings it forward chronologically as far as you can bring it forward. And the reason for that was this is exactly what AVEC and possibly others didn't want to do and may not have concurred with the judgment if it would have provided for them inheriting a contractual partner in the Watermaster and the Watermaster engineer to police them, for example, to make sure that they were, in her opinion or in the board's opinion, properly mitigating pursuant to conditions placed on during a CEQA process that may have happened 10 years ago. It's exactly the reason why there's an exemption there. The problem is it wasn't very clearly written to be a complete carve-out, and the reason for that was because the people running banks should provide all of this data and information to the Watermaster and the Watermaster engineer to be transparent, to be sure the basin is not harmed by any of those operations. So, and the second point about over pumping these storage facilities so you get a negative balance, nobody should do that unless they're willing to have an accounting and they have water rights, which they can apply to that, or they can pay a replacement water assessment. So I don't know why a storage facility, I can't believe it could be interpreted to allow production of water that hasn't been either put in storage and with someone having the right to recover it, or otherwise supported by some water right. So I don't think there's an exemption. I have a storage facility, so I can put in 100 acre feet, but I can pump out 200, and the second 100 is exempt from the rest of the judgment. I don't think that's the case. So although we are definitely willing to discuss this, and maybe a judgment amendment ought to be thought about if this is troubling to the point where it needs to be treated as distinct from all the other production and other facilities operated in the basin. I mean, there are gigantic production wells, clusters of production wells, plumes of various things, all of which occurred prior to the judgment being entered. And I don't think that that suddenly every one of those facilities is going to get a CEQA review to be sure that CEQA was followed and the mitigation measures are being followed. I mean, I can just see all of that happening to WW40's production wells or somebody else's production wells, or the reclaimed water, the reclamation process that Sand Districts engages in. So our operations are like anybody else's old operations, and I don't think any of those operations are exempt from having to avoid material injury. So I don't disagree with Stan. It's fine, and we would be happy to participate in addressing these concerns, but that shouldn't hold up Section 9 of the Watermaster rules, which simply deals with what the parties who own these storage facilities that were operating at the time the judgment was entered, how do we treat them? We can't require a storage agreement that, for the most part, is aimed at new facilities or how they operate, but we shouldn't exempt them from providing all the information that would be useful to the Watermaster engineer. And we wrote an amendment that we thought, I drafted it with the help of Craig Parton, and we thought that addressed the subject matter of this request, which is this amendment to Section 9. The rest of it, we can look through the judgment and see if there really aren't things that address what Stan, I think, very well articulated may occur. But those could occur on all sorts of facilities that have nothing to do with banking. So it's a broader question, I think, than the one we have to deal with here. So we would still urge the board to approve the Section 9 amendment today.
Thank you, Jim. Stan, did you want to have another comment?
Yes, if I could. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, please.
And again, I may be missing part of Jim's point here, but I will say when we have negative storage amounts, a party with a negative storage amount may have enough water rights to cover that. But as with anyone else with a right, if you're going to produce that water at a new point of extraction from what the historical use is, there's a transfer process that's reviewed and analyzed by the Watermaster engineer, and part of that review and analysis is to look at material injury. And it's not clear to me that what Jim is really proposing here isn't basically like a transfer. That no one with the production right has total freedom to move the location of where that water is produced without this review by the Watermaster. So that's my comment. Thank you, Rob.
Thank you,
So,
Stan.
Rob, one more point.
Go ahead, Jim.
This is how it goes with Stan and me. If ABEC has a water right, ABEC has water rights, and lots of them, as do other parties to this judgment. And I don't think any particular percentage of ABEC's water rights are assigned to only be produced by one of its production facilities. No more than Waterworks 40 would be confined to have a bubble of total production that needs to come out of each identified well. I agree with Stan. I mean, if you're the water, I can tell you the water in the East Side Water Bank by ABEC is generally pumped by ABEC after the percolation process is used to essentially treat the water, and it's served. And it's produced out of ABEC wells located at the same location, all of which will be supplied to the Watermaster engineer to see. And that's how it's gone for a very long time. So I don't know, this, at least in my client's operation, this could not be deemed to transfer a kind of quasi transfer of water rights or a new production facility or from one production facility to the other, because again, nothing in the judgment I've seen tells you that a party with multiple production facilities is required to pump a certain percentage of its water rights from one, but not from the other. So that would be my response.
Okay, thank you, Jim. And then, Phyllis, can we unmute Phyllis? I just want her to weigh in. Do you agree with the Section 9 as it's written after hearing all this discussion?
Yes, I think that's fine. And thank you for allowing me to have one additional comment here. I just want to point out that for 4 years, the Watermaster engineer has gotten numerous questions on banking operations from numerous parties that we can't answer. And everyone from the on the Watermaster board has asked us to be concerned about what budget requirements we might have with respect to the annual report. But I can tell you most of the discussions and work that we do, especially the comments of the annual report, have to do with the banking operations. We generally understand them. Our firm specializes in managing aquifer recharge, so we know about banking very well. I do a lot of work in banking in Kern County, for example. And I'm not interested in policing. I'm interested in understanding. And I know that these banking operations have a lot of complexity. I know that because during the annual report, we try to figure it out on the fly. And it would be much more efficient for everyone if we could have the opportunity to actually review the information and understand the banking operations so that we could answer questions, prepare the annual report, and move forward. And I think that the language that's in Section 9 right now allows for that to happen. And again, I go back to who will participate in the budget amendment. We have no money to do this now. We have tightened up our budgets significantly over the years at the request of the Watermaster. And all we have ever wanted to do is to fully understand, to be able to explain back to the parties who ask us questions that we can't answer. Thank you, Rob.
Thank you, Phyllis. And Craig, do you have any final comments, or are you in agreement with Section 9 as written after hearing all the discussion this morning?
I am, and particularly supportive of the fact, or important to me is the fact that the engineer is comfortable with the language. I will say if you table it, I would like to not only bring it back in 30 days, but back in 30 days with a definitive decision made, so that we have certainty as to when we're going to submit the integrated rules and regulations, Judge Comar.
Understood. Based upon all the discussion I've heard so far, I don't see what more can be, and I understand the issues, I believe. I don't see what more can be added to Section 9 that isn't already there, that satisfies what the judgment requires. What are your thoughts? Craig?
Well, I would want to see what the exact text is that's going to be offered. Right now, we have suggested language that's been worked through with Mr. Markman and with the engineer's input, and has been circulated to the wider group, and have comments back, but no red line is specifically how would Section 9 be changed? And I just can't answer that in a vacuum. I don't know what language is being proposed.
Understood. It's your recommendation that Section 9 be approved?
Yes.
And it's Phyllis's recommendation that Section 9 be approved?
Yes.
Okay. Is there any further public comment? Hearing no further public comment, is there a motion to close the public hearing? And can we unmute everybody, please?
This is Dennis. I move we close.
Is there a second?
Rob, this is Adam.
Yes, Adam.
I have a question.
Yes, please.
I don't understand what negative bank water means to me. I don't know. And as far as material injury analysis and this and that and the other thing, to the best of my recollections, AVEC groundwater bank was done with a CEQA document. The public had the opportunity to comment on it. And to the best of my knowledge, AVEC was putting water in that groundwater basin all along when the water was available. And when the water was needed during drought, that's when the bank was operated. So this notion of negative bank water, I don't know who thinks that there was more water pumped that was than the amount that was banked. So it makes no sense to me. And then the CEQA requirements and the permit that that bank was granted from the Hunter Regional Water Quality Board has to count for something. So I'm with you. I don't know what else could we do to the language of Section 9.
Sorry, Jim. I'll call you right back. LA's calling me.
I'm on the other line anyway. So.
Okay, wait a second, Adam. Could we mute everybody at this point except for Adam?
That's interesting.
Thank you. And can Adam be unmuted so he can finish his comments?
Okay.
Yeah, I was. Yeah, thank you. I was done. I just don't see what could be done to the language between now and next month to change it to anything other than what it is today, given what I've given and what I stated. So I see, personally, I see no reason to postpone this any further. Our council is telling us to move it forward. Our engineer is telling us to move forward. Our gut tends tell us that it's fine. My experience with this bank and the permitting process and the CEQA document that AVEC went through tells me everything's fine, and I feel as a public agency, AVEC is a responsible agency that has every intention to protect the groundwater basin. So based on that, I don't think we should postpone this any further.
Okay, Adam. Could you second the motion to close the public hearings then?
Yes, I will.
Okay. Motion made, I believe, by Dennis. Is that correct, Betty?
Yes.
And second by Adam to close the public hearings. Let's open all the mics before we go for a vote and make sure there's nothing further. Okay, there's a motion made by Dennis, second by Adam to close the public hearings. Is there any further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, all in favor of the motion to close the public hearings, Patty, roll call vote.
Director Atkinson?
Yes.
Director Ricci?
Yes.
Director Calandry?
Yes.
Director McLaren?
Yes.
And Director Paris?
Yes, motion's carried unanimously. We're now on item H, rules and regulations. And is there a motion to approve resolution number R2025? Adopting section 9 of the Antelope Valley Watermaster rules and regulations.
Yes, this is Adam. I move that we approve resolution R 2025.
Motion made by Adam. Is there a second?
Dennis, I'll second that.
Dennis seconds the motion. Motion made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Discussion, all in favor of the motion to approve resolution number R 2025 adopting section 9 of the Antelope Valley Watermaster rules and regulations. Patty, roll call vote, please.
Director Atkinson?
Yes.
Director Ricci?
Yes.
Director Calandry?
Yes.
Director McLaren?
Yes.
And Director Paris?
Yes, motion's carried unanimously. That brings us to the administrator's report. Please mute everyone except either Matt or Peter.
Yeah.
Hey, Rob,
Yes,
does that mean we're going to send it to the judge now?
that means we're going to send everything to the judge now, Dennis.
Okay, perfect.
Yes, that's correct.
And hopefully Craig will report back at the next meeting that has been done.
Yep.
Great. Okay, now we're on the administrator's report. Any other comments by the board or Craig?
No.
Okay, administrator.
Yep. Good afternoon, this is Matt. A couple items to update the board on. First one being we currently have distributed the ballots for the landowner rep and the alternate reps. That's been distributed to everybody on Exhibit 4. And those ballots are due back to the Inspector of Elections by August 10th. So if everything goes well, we'll have a new board member and 2 alternate reps for landowner seat, and they'll most likely take their position at the September 2020 meeting. Also, we continue to meet monthly with the administrative committee made up of Director Atkinson and Director Ricci. We typically review the monthly bills. This last month, we discussed what Mr. Galen Kyle brought up earlier under public comment regarding the attorney bills, and we're actually been directed from the committee to bring back a policy that the board can consider, so that we are being consistent if we move towards charging somebody for legal time. With that, happy to answer any questions, but that's all I have to report.
Thank you, Matt. Please open the mics. Is there any discussion? Any questions of Matt? Okay, we're now on item 10, Watermaster Engineer's report. Can we mute everybody but Kate and Phyllis, please?
Yes, thank you very much. I have just a couple of quick follow-up slides with regards to the annual report issue. If you can go back just one slide quickly. I'm sorry, there's just a one in front of this one.
Mute everybody. Hold on.
Yeah, Phyllis, hang on 1 minute. We're going to mute everybody and then unmute you.
Now, okay, that sounds wonderful. That sounds much cleaner. We can just start here if you'd like. Actually, back one more. I'm sorry. Perfect. Go back. Just 2 more slides. 1 more. Yes, thank you. Whoa. Great. Okay, so for my engineer's update, I have just 2 quick items, and I thought that it might be helpful to at least provide some visuals so that people would have a better understanding of what was happening. As you recall, the adjudicated basins are required under SIGMA to file their annual reports and to report their water use data online. And that's required at the same time that we have our annual report due to the court. And just to give you another opportunity to see what those forms look like, we can go to the next slide. And the next 2 slides actually show these forms. So this gives you an understanding of what's being provided to the Department of Water Resources on behalf of the Antelope Valley Watermaster. And the numbers that are shown here are old. I'm so sorry I had pulled an older version. We update this before submittal. We can update it on the online, offline, so to speak, and then we can upload it onto the portal when it is finalized. The production that is shown here is actually incorrect and needs to be updated. But it gives you an opportunity to see that you have general information being supplied along with the upload of your annual report. And then section B talks about groundwater use. So we break out what we have from the production reports into metered records, estimated records, and other records, and give an explanation to the Department of Water Resources on what data those are. And then going to the next slide, we see that not only is groundwater use required, but also surface water use is required. And specifically, the Department of Water Resources asked for an accounting of the banking in the subbasin. And so those numbers that are shown there, again, are not quite up to date, but you get the idea of what is being asked there. Again, everything will be consistent with the information that is in your 2019 annual report. And then in addition to groundwater use and surface water use, then there's a sum there for total water use in the subbasin and a change in groundwater and storage. You might recall that our methodology for doing change in groundwater storage has to do with the subtraction of the 2 water level contour maps and the appropriate storativity parameters that we apply to that calculation. And so again, everything is in your annual report, but they want everything sort of broken out according to their templates here so that they can keep up with changes in water use over the state of California. So that's what is going to happen after the annual report is finalized and provided to council to provide to the court. It will be uploaded along with additional updated water use information. And then just one additional item for my update today is on the next slide. And it's just, again, my sort of end of year accounting, end of annual report year accounting, that we still have 28 parties that did not provide us with their annual water report production. This is actually better than previous years, so I'm not complaining too loudly, but we're working with staff to continue to make this happen. These are small amounts of water, so I think that we have, the vast majority of the production in the subbasin has been reported to us. But again, we just want to bring before the board the issue that this is a big priority for us. We feel like that until we can know exactly what's being pumped in the basin, it's difficult to fulfill our main role, which is to make sure that we are moving in the direction of being within the sustainable yield of the groundwater basin. So again, staff has been fabulous in pushing and working and calling and recalling all of the parties, but we're still not at full compliance, and we're certainly working hard to try to make that happen. At some point, I know we've talked about this, that we have legal recourse. The judgment allows for us to come down harder on this. So I leave that to the board's discretion for future, but wanted to at least give you an accounting of where we are this year. And that's the update from me today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Phyllis. And now we're on the General Counsel's report.
Yes, I've covered most of the issues, essentially all of them. Added to the list will be to get the rules and regulations before Judge Comar on the annual report back to this group then, and also following the motions to intervene. The third main topic is enforcement status, and I want to talk about that next month, but staff has been very cooperative and aggressive about identifying those that are suspected of pumping outside the judgment, and want to give you an update as to our efforts there. I think there'll be more to specifically reference in the August meeting.
Great. Thank you, Craig.
Thank you.
And now let's unmute. Are there any board members' requests for future agenda items?
Hi, this is Adam. A very quick question for fellows.
Yes.
Did we estimate the amount of water of these 28 parties that have failed to report their production in the annual report? That is,
we don't have that in the annual report, but we have provided that information to the board in the past, and it's a very small amount. We're talking about a cumulative amount of something around several thousand acre feet. So the 28 parties are a relatively small number, and that would be the maximum amount that they'd be allowed to pump under wrap down and under the judgment. The actual pumping amounts by these parties may be smaller. We do know that you'll always notice that we always have the state of California as one of our that doesn't have full production, and part of that is because they don't think they have any production, and they can't determine which department would even be responsible for knowing about that. So every year we go down the little bit of the rabbit hole working with the state of California. No offense, and
but it wouldn't be disadvantageous or anything to estimate these amounts, even if you assume the maximum amount that they're allowed to pump for the annual report.
Yeah, that's a good point. We could document that, and we do have on table 9. I'm sorry, I think it's table 10 in the annual report. We do have the parties that did not report. We keep up with this. There are parties that did not report in 2016, 17, 18, and now 19. And so table 9 and table 10 in the annual report identifies the parties, but we haven't estimated any production. So I think that if the board feels comfortable that this would be I think it would be considered perhaps a minor edit, which your resolution to approve your 2019 annual report has already determined, for us just simply to add a small one-sentence estimate that simply documents what the judgment says these parties would be allowed to produce if they were producing their maximum. Does that make sense?
Right. I would recommend that we do that, and if there is an objection from the other parties, that way when we do analyze the groundwater basin extraction amounts, then we have a historical, semi-complete record of the data.
Yes.
So I don't see any harm in doing so. Estimates are estimates. It's better than nothing. So unless there is an objection from one of the board members, I would ask that we add that.
Craig, would that be appropriate to add a line? It did not go through public hearing, did not get approved in the resolution. I agree with Adam, but I just want to make sure you don't see any issues with that.
Well, I don't think we need to open up public hearing, but you might ask for public comment now.
And I think, and would we asterisk that in the report that would just show that was not in the public hearing or something? I don't know what the requirement is.
Well,
I think the public hearing said the public hearing doesn't really all what it says is the annual report. And what I'm suggesting is for those that didn't report production, we just estimate the amount of water that they pump.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you, Adam. I just want to make sure procedurally we're fine. And Craig said, at this point, while we open the mics, is there any public comment regarding adding a line that estimates the amount of water used by those non-reporters? Can we open up the mics?
They're all open.
Okay, any discussion, any concerns?
Could I just make one comment, Rob?
Yes, please, Phyllis.
Your resolution that you approved does allow for the board to incorporate comments and recommendations that you wish to this annual report. So I think you're
Thank you, Phyllis.
Process now.
Great. Okay, thanks for pointing that out. Yeah, I'm in agreement. Rest of the board, consensus? Dennis,
yes.
John,
Yes.
Kathy?
Yep.
Okay, we have consensus. Craig, we don't need to vote on that, I would imagine.
No, the resolution gives the flexibility as modified, and you've just recommended the asterisk, the addition of that sentence, provided an opportunity for public input, and it'll be incorporated in the 2019 annual report.
Outstanding. Good comment, Adam. Thank you, everybody. Anything else, Phyllis? Craig?
Thank you.
Okay.
No, thank you.
Any future board member agenda items? Dennis?
Nope.
John?
Nope.
Kathy?
I'm good, thank you.
Adam? And I have none. So I just want to thank everybody for their cooperation today. We are getting a lot better at our Zoom meetings. What would be helpful is if all the board members and participants can name your phone or your computer so Zoom can pick up a name. Holly or Kathy can help you with doing that, and that way we can be a lot better at muting and unmuting and getting rid of the noise. I want to thank the public for your cooperation today. I know this is a lot different, but we're all getting a lot better, and we're ready to adjourn. If there's nothing else, I'm going to adjourn this meeting until our next meeting on August 26, 2020. Safe, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you for your help.
Thank you.